I remember my first few months in Glaxo where information was really difficult. The age, it was 1988. Even PubMed was really not available everywhere. So I remember having contacted a company in US which made PubMed on CD. It was called Medline at that time. So we subscribed to it, but then we didn't have a player for that. So I had to go to Philips, and because they were the inventors of the CD-ROM as it was called. And the manager told me, yes, we have received a sample. It must be in our storeroom somewhere. So I remember having gone to the storeroom and they looked for a CD-ROM sample, and then we installed Medline. I was very much focused in Glaxo on my work, and I was, in terms of a level, I was quite junior. So I was very surprised when I started getting offers. When Fulford offered me a position of a vice president, it was a very big jump for me. India had to step up in terms of clinical trials. There was a great opportunity. Environment was ready to take on the global challenges for clinical trials, but our regulations were not on par. And as you grow higher up, you have to learn management principles. You have to do a lot of soft skills development. And I consistently, in all my organizations, I ensured that we always had these kind of training programs for my associates. Indian pharma became big. That was because of the generic exports to the developed markets. So a lot of money came in. And then they thought that we can replicate the same into new drug research. So big discovery centers came up. And really we did not make an impact. And several drug discovery research units have been closed down now.
Welcome to the show. Today we have a very interesting guest, Dr. Dhananjay Bakhle. He is an independent consultant. He is an entrepreneur with his startup on AI and ML. He is an ex-retiree from Lupin who was the head of clinical pharmacology and clinical research. I think the accolades just adds more and more to his name. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, if you have to name one, whether would you address yourself as a consultant, as a doctor, as a clinical pharmacologist? What would you like to say?
I think now I'm an entrepreneur, although R&D is our domain. But I think making R&D as a business, I feel, is very strongly because I always believed that good science is good business. So therefore, this is a golden opportunity for me, at least, to convert some of the new products into therapies, particularly for unmet diseases of unmet medical need, because I think there is a lot of need for conditions that are not treatable today, even today, despite of so many discoveries over time. So I would describe myself as a R&D scientist as well as an entrepreneur.
So let's delve more into the entrepreneurship. What is your current startup more about? Can you tell us?
Yeah. So we decided to focus on an AI ML driven uh, virtual company which is trying to develop new products by repurposing. Because we have over 17 to 20,000 drugs that are already approved and marketed in various parts. Many of them have been discontinued because of lack of commercial incentives. But they work on various different pathways and receptor systems which have not been fully explored. And new information is coming up, and with the AI/ML engines that are now available, we have a unique opportunity to look at the multiomics knowledge platforms, which can knowledge graphs rather, which provide integration of the data on the molecules and as well as the disease targets. So I think utilizing that, we have been trying to attempt creating new therapies.
Sir, why is there the need to create these therapies? What is the gap that you actually see in this?
See, just look at resistant depression today. I'll just give you an example. Uh, you have a very unique situation where a patient of depression is not responding to therapies, the existing drugs. He keeps changing different drugs. He keeps changing the doctors also. And most of these antidepressants, they take about a 1 month to act. So therefore, he changes the doctor, he changes the medicine, and then the doctor tells him that although you are on a new medicine, you have to wait at least for more than a month to see the effect. So imagine the frustration that the patient has. So for resistant depression, we do not have any good drugs available today. So there are many such conditions that we have identified. And when we look at the data that is available, the mechanisms and the pathways that cause depression, for example, the resistant depression, if you see that the suicidal tendencies are extremely high, and most of these suicides occur between 4 to 6 a.m. in the morning. So obviously there has to be some biomarkers behind that. There has to be some specific changes in the brain that occur at that time. So what are these pathways? What are the neurotransmitters involved? So if you study those and then try to match with the molecules that are that can really neutralize that, then it is possible to compose the treatments of that type. So there are many such conditions like that. So therefore, the conventional research model that exists today is to look at a single target, try to develop what is called as a ligand, that means a chemical molecule that works on that target, and develop it as a drug. So it's a very, very monochromatic kind of a way of looking at things, while we are looking at in a very polychromatic way, because there are so many drugs available, so much of data is available on them. So we are looking at the possibility, can we try different mechanisms? Can we change the routes of administration? Can we look at possible potential combinations? Try to look at the new targets and the old drugs to see whether they match. With the result of that, we are getting very interesting results. And with our AI/ML portal that we are using, which we developed it ourselves, I think the journey seems to be going great, and we are hitting upon some of the newer ideas that were not seen before.
This is very interesting and exciting, sir. So, how big of a team you have, and what kind of employees are there in your team?
Yeah. So I think, as I mentioned, that we are a virtual company, and we have about 12 different consultants representing different fields, starting with medicinal chemistry, because that's where
Absolutely.
the magic of the molecule starts. Then we have in vitro consultants, in vivo for animal preclinical. We have people from the formulations side to look at things, and then several other disciplines that are required to develop a new drug. And then there is a virtual ecosystem of various partners that we have, which are basically contract manufacturing companies, formulation developers, uh, those CROs who can do animal studies, and the CROs who do clinical studies. So we have developed a very good virtual ecosystem through which we operate.
Wow, that is really interesting, sir. So, let's go back to your college days and your educational journey. What made you to take an doctorate degree?
No, I'm not a doctorate. Actually, I'm a MD.
MD.
So I did my MBBS, and typically, like any other young graduate, will have the dilemma of taking a post graduation. I was always interested in the research, and we had a very good pharmacology department and a lot of clinical pharmacology studies happening there. So I was quite attracted to that. Initially, we used to, as friends, we used to participate in the studies that they conducted as volunteers, and that increased our rapport with the Department of Pharmacology. And then I understood the potential career of research, so I took pharmacology right in the beginning. And after graduating and doing the post graduation, I continued to work in a industry sponsored research unit which was operating in the JJ Hospital. I'm from Grand Medical College, and in this unit we did several global studies, even phase 1 studies, which was the first administration of a drug to humans, because it was run by a German multinational called Huxt at that time, which is now today Sanofi. So therefore, we had a very good interaction with the scientists from Huxt, not just from India but also from Germany. I used to visit their facility in Germany. So as a result, that showed me the research side very, very closely while remaining in academics. And then I decided to continue in the pharma industry as an employee.
So, how was the clinical pharmacology field when you started?
There was hardly anything. So in fact, That was the time, before I took pharmacology, for almost 6 years, nobody had taken up that post-graduation. So therefore, my friends were very concerned that whether I'm going completely offbeat and taking something that nobody knows. So pharmacology was really not there. Clinical pharmacology existed in our hospital because of my guide for MD, Dr. R.D. Kulkarni, who had developed a fairly good size of a unit and several research studies in collaboration with the clinical departments were being done. So Department of Medicine was involved, Department of other disciplines also were involved. So we could do a lot of good work at that point of time, but clinical research was in complete nascency, and the regulations did not exist. So whatever regulation that we see today, in fact, the Schedule Y, which was the first harbinger of proper regulations for new drugs and clinical trials, came in 1988. And that is the time I left JJ Hospital and joined Glaxo at that time.
Okay. Coming to Glaxo, you actually established an in-house clinical pharmacology unit. Can you please tell us about that?
That was a very interesting experience, because Glaxo had a conventional medical department like every other pharma company, but they had ambition and they had a lot of space also available. So when I proposed the idea of creating in-house research unit, and the Schedule Y had just been announced, and which required that every single new drug to be introduced in India would require a bioequivalence study, at least at the bare minimum. So Glaxo management could fund that unit because it became mandatory. So instead of going out to some academic unit, they said, why not we set up? So I set up a full-fledged drug estimation laboratory, which was not an area familiar to me. But with the help of my colleagues and other departments, we could set up a drug estimation lab with the first HPLC, an automated one that was acquired. And we had to create a facility for housing the volunteers. So within the Glaxo offices, we had to create space for housing beds and all, which was a completely new thing at that time. So, but the management supported, and at that time there was no GCP, so we could take the workers in Glaxo factory, which was just nearby in the same complex. So that's how we started doing bioequivalence as well as phase 1 studies.
So you've become a VP medical at the age of 33. How did it, make you feel? And did you feel that you had more responsibility now, or?
Yeah, that was, I was very much focused in Glaxo on my work, and I was, in terms of a level, I was quite junior. So I was very surprised when I started getting offers, possibly because it was the first industry unit which got talked about within other companies. So when Fulford offered me a position of a vice president, it was a very big jump for me. And there was another company, a similar offer. So, but I decided to move to Fulford, which was an American shearing plow, very, very dynamic company, and the MD was very impressive. So I moved there. So as a vice president, I realized that I had a heavy responsibility, and the biggest product of the company was banned by the government at that point of time. And because scientific data they wanted us to generate, and so within a few weeks of my joining, I had to fight a Supreme Court case, and I realized that it was uh, a job far beyond that of a medical director, which was a conventional role that all my peers were managing. But at the age of 33, I think people have unlimited enthusiasm. So that kept me driving, and we had excellent lawyers in terms of Crawford and Bailey, and so we managed to fight that court case successfully. And then, of course, my conventional job of medical director remained, and we could get some India's among the first few biotech products, interferons and growth factors for
Growth
cancer.
factors.
Those we could get it approved.
I was just going to get to that actually. So you launched the first biotech anti-cancer products. How was the landscape at that time when you had to do all these ethical documents and getting approvals? It must have been quite challenging.
Yeah. No, in fact, I remember my meeting with the inventor of the alpha interferon, and it was an Indian scientist in the US called Professor Nagbhushan. He was Dr. Nagbhushan, working for heading the biotech R&D of shearing plow. So when I met him in New Jersey, he told me the entire story of how interferons was discovered, and he mentioned that when it was made initially, it was only 2% pure, and then from that time to bring it to 98% purity was a big challenge for them. But I think it worked very well for cancer, and when we launched it in India, I had to directly interact with the oncologist, which I realized was a very elite community of doctors, and it was a great interaction. We did several symposia in India with the oncologists and also the hepatologists. So in fact, we created a separate brand within Fulford to launch it for the hepatologists because it was useful for infective hepatitis. So that also taught me, those 2 years of Fulford taught me a lot of medico marketing also. So I think Sherinkplow was very aggressive in terms of the market access while always remaining ethical. So it was a great time for me to learn some of these aspects.
So how did these two products came to market? Like what was the trigger behind these two products, interferon and CSF?
So I think it was always known that whenever the both are, as you know, that they are secreted in the human body, and the properties of that were quite well known. So converting that into a commercial product required a technology which is a recombinant DNA technology. And see, today everybody knows even
Yeah.
mRNAs, but
Yes.
that time even developing a recombinant DNA was a challenge. Only Roche and Schering-Plough were the only two companies who could do that at that point of time. So both the companies launched their first interferons as well as the growth factors. There was a neck-to-neck competition, but developing it through the entire clinical phase for multiple cancers was a big challenge. And I think they did that, managed that very well, and they had excellent, even oncologists working within the pharma company, developing the clinical trials for that. So entirely it was done through the clinical trial development, multiple cancers, multiple indications. And as I said, that it was even branched out to gastroenterology in terms of hepatology, and that was very new thing. See, today it's very common because of biologicals having become commonplace. But otherwise, for chemical drugs, jumping indication from one therapy to another was unknown.
Absolutely. Today
So
we have so many different
yeah,
branches. So the handling is being done by different people in each
correct.
department.
That's true. So I think now this has become commonplace, but at that time it was very, very new. So therefore, and the most of the R&D companies in the US were organized therapy area wise. So therefore, jumping to another therapy area meant different teams and different key opinion leaders and clinical investigators. So that challenge was managed by only a few companies, and those who did that, they got tremendous benefit in terms of the market share as well as their image in the those therapy areas.
So after you joined Lupin, you were on the WHO committee for tuberculosis. How did that happen and how prepared were you for this role?
It was a very interesting experience when, since Lupin was one of the largest manufacturers of APIs for TB, we were invited. My boss, who was the chairman of Lupin, DB Gupta, he was invited for a closed door, special invitee meetings for creating the TB coalition in Cape Town. So it so happened that Mr. DB Gupta could not attend that meeting, and he asked me to, at a short notice, to go and attend that meeting. There were only 130 special invitees from all over the world, and when I attended that, the ICMR Director General could not make it. So I happened to be the only Indian delegate. So just seemed to be at the right time in right place. So I was asked to make a presentation because TB was the most rampant, and I was given literally a 24-hour notice to present in place of the ICMR Director General. So I did that, and some of the very big TB scientists as well as stakeholders were present in that meeting. So as a result, that presentation was liked by many, and me and Lupin were suddenly known to the entire TB community in the world because that drew elite audiences from different funding agencies, different stakeholders from WHO and all that. So then I got roped into the WHO's technical advisory committee on tuberculosis,
Okay.
and I had the opportunity to attend those meetings regularly, along with the Health Secretary of India. So that was a unique opportunity. And as a result, we became part of the policy making worldwide. And we also contributed significantly in terms of uh, the committees that they formed, subcommittees, and particularly the four drug combination. Lupin was the first one to introduce in this part of the world, and even the composition of the fourth component, ethambutol, I was actively involved in, uh, you know, in the workshops and suggesting the composition of the dosing, particularly of ethambutol. So that was a great experience working with the TB stakeholders around the world.
So, how did you manage with this rapid evolution of changing things that are happening in each and every field, and you were given responsibility in each one of them? So, how are you preparing yourself with all of them, and you've not just prepared for it, you've excelled in it. So, how did you do that?
I think the credit probably goes to the chairman of Lupin, Sri Deshbandhu Gupta, who was my boss for 5 years. I directly reported to him, and he would ask the moon, almost on a daily basis, and I had to deliver it the next day. And then he didn't have any mental borders. So he was the owner and the chairman of the company. It was growing very rapidly, and as a result, he would put me into different activities, and including at one time, I was temporarily heading the IT department,
Oh,
which was completely unimaginable, and
exactly.
he was quite happy if I continued it. But then I ensured that we hired a IT head. So because of which I got a lot of exposure. Media interactions tremendously increased. At that time, I was only 35 years old at that time, but I think it was a great experience, and thanks to him that I worked in cross-functional business areas. I headed some business task forces also. At one time, he again gave me a temporary responsibility of the so-called herbal division that Lupin had, and we did a lot of activities on different fronts apart from the conventional medical marketing and clinical.
So, you built a clinical research group at Aventis from scratch. How did that happen, and how uh, were you appointed there for building this group, or was it something that you had to do now that you had joined that organization?
Yeah, I think you identified rightly that it was a need of the hour, because India had to step up in terms of clinical trials. There was a great opportunity. The environment was ready to take on the global challenges for clinical trials, but our regulations were not on par. So because the GCP had just come in, and that also took time. So therefore, when I was in Aventis, I was in touch with the European Forum for GCP, and then the Chemtech Foundation and Jasubai Shah was very much in touch with me, and he said that why don't we do something different rather than just doing a conventional, conferences and exhibitions for clinical research. So I said, if you're committed to this cause, then we can create a forum, and then we created an Indian forum for GCP, and that under that auspices we could revamp the GCP guidelines of India to bring it on par with the global guidelines. And I invited the Secretary General of the European Forum for GCP to India, and there were several meetings lined up, including with the Drugs Controller of India, who took a lot of interest at that time. Dr. Ashwini Kumar was the DCGI, and as a result, we could collectively together, and he also formed a GCP committee, so we could bring the GCP on par with the rest of the world. And then the rest is history, because you saw the growth of clinical trials in India. Except that the ambition was too far and too much, uh, but we could not reach really that stage, because there was a large pickup in the beginning, a huge upsurge, but somehow India could not maintain it over time. Otherwise, by now we would have been the complete global hub for all clinical trials.
How was the preparation done for all these things, sir? Because today we live in a digital world where, at the touch of our fingers, we get information. We know how we need to prepare ourselves. If we need more manpower, train others, get instruments, and what not. So, in that time, I'm sure we wouldn't even have much information on our hands. Uh, leave alone facing the challenges that we are going to get.
Mhm.
So, how did that documentation work in terms of learning that this is what has to be done? That knowledge, how were you
Yeah,
able
it
to
was
impart?
very challenging at that time. I remember my first few months in Glaxo where information was really, really difficult. The age, it was 1988. So, particularly for good medico marketing, we required information, and even PubMed was really not available
Yes.
everywhere. So, I remember having contacted a company in US which made PubMed on CD. It was called Medline at that time.
Medline, yes.
So we subscribed to it, but then we didn't have a player for that. So I had to go to Philips, and because they were the inventors of the CD-ROM as it was called. So I had to go and tell them that, can you please supply me a CD-ROM? And the manager told me, yes, we have received a sample. It must be in our storeroom somewhere. So I remember having gone to the storeroom and they looked for a CD-ROM sample, and then we installed Medline. Then we took it to various conferences that Glaxo organized, and we actually did road shows of that, and then spread like wildfire. So I think initially we had challenging times compiling data, getting it, and but we managed. I mean, today is very difficult to imagine for people because everything is at a touch of fingers.
Sir, with Lupin, you had created a Japanese joint venture. How was that experience having a global platform and also justifying what we are able to do here with their standards?
Yeah, I think that was a time where Japanese joint ventures of pharma companies really did not succeed beyond a point. I remember Mr. Dhananjay he had called me once after we formed this joint venture, uh, that how is it happening, how is it doing, because he said that the track record is not very good. But fortunately, we got a very good partner in terms of Yoshindo with Lupin, and the joint venture was conceived by the head of our exports of Lupin. And then Yoshindo, being a very good partner, the entire joint venture was for biosimilars. And through that joint venture, we could develop etanercept, which was a flagship molecule through Japan and also Europe. So I think probably we were the first company having done 250 patients of rheumatoid arthritis from Japan itself, and the rest from Europe. So that global trial was conducted through the joint venture, and Japanese style is very, very different, very, very systematic. So we tremendously benefited from their discipline that was part of this entire process. So as a result, the product was very successful. It was approved by PMDA as well as European Commission, and now the product is going to go worldwide. So that was a great experience.
How long did it take for this process, sir?
I think the entire study took almost 5 years to complete because it was a giant phase 3 trial. And then, of course, there were several other studies that had to be done, including PKPD. But I think for developing biosimilars is a challenging thing. And subsequently, we also developed ranibizumab, which is now licensed to Sandoz by Lupin, and then aflibercept. I think so. All these things came one after the other, and I think now it has become commonplace because there are several Indian companies now into global. Biocon is a very good example. They have done exceedingly well, and they acquired the Viatris, forming Biocon Biologics. So I think now it has become common, but at one time it was not. It was quite difficult.
So, from the time you've started with clinical research and pharmacology to what it is today, what all changes has happened and what all significant impact has it had on our society?
So I think what has happened is that the clinical trials have developed quite well in India. There are thousands of professionals who are working in this field. The GCP and all the other processes have been well established, but the science part is really not developed that well in terms of understanding. So I think it's possible that the Indian. I mean, we have BPOs, the CROs
Yeah.
that exist in India, both multinational as well as Indian. They are basically like the BPOs, but the KPOs of clinical research we do not see that often. So I think it's possible that the kind of statistics capability that we have, even the clinical research capabilities that exist, if people really master that, particularly the clinical research methodology, is very, very different. Is not really part of medicine, I would say. It is a completely different discipline as such. But not having appreciated that, I think we haven't really created too many talents in that. And when I was with Reliance, heading the clinical research activity of the Mukesh Ambani's Reliance Life Sciences, that time we used to do one conference every month devoted only to clinical research methodology. And we got a humongous response from the clinical trial associates all over Mumbai, at least at that point of time. So I think there is a lot of need, and it's possible to create big KPOs. And with the Novartis unit that I set up as a very small unit in Mumbai, today if you see that almost all clinical trials of Novartis are being conceived in Hyderabad, which is where that unit is located now. So that example shows us that India can conceive new clinical trials for most challenging compounds.
When did this boom happen, sir? So I'm sure there might have been a stage where there was a dire need for this, and then rapid changes would have happened in terms of investments, in terms of manpower. So when did this exactly trigger?
It started around little bit before 2000. So if you say the Y2K of clinical research
Yes.
is 2000, the change of the millennium, and the GCP was fully implemented by that time. And a lot of companies wanted to do trial. And I remember I was in Aventis that time, and uh, I was specifically hired in Aventis because they were interested in doing global trials in India, and the capabilities didn't exist. So therefore, I could rapidly expand my group, and we brought almost all trials. Pfizer was already doing that, Eli Lilly, BMS for doing that, but there are not too many examples. And then the clinical trials started flowing. Also, there was some clinical trial training institutes privately set up, and particularly by those people who came from the IT industry, and they used to give full page advertisements. So everybody thought that there is a huge opportunity. And at one time, we would define CRO as can't resist opportunity rather than clinical research organization, because everybody wanted to get into clinical trials. I used to get calls from people from as vague as leather industry tycoons wanting to set up a CRO. And a person would say, I got a 3,000 square feet area in Marine Drive. Can we set up a CRO? So we have gone through all that. And I think then everything settled down in the next 10 years. I think, as I said, that we have lost some opportunity, but I think the industry is quite stabilized now.
Amongst all the organizations that you have worked with, which is that one organization that you resonate more and why?
I think Lupin really provided that. In my Lupin, I had two stints, and the first stint I was in Mumbai reporting to the chairman, which was a very, very challenging time. And that is a time, I mean, whatever I did in 5 years, I had not done in my previous entire career at that point of time. And the second innings in Lupin was for about 13 years or so in Pune, because we had a full research park set up, and we were doing global studies. So I think Lupin has always provided the kind of opportunity, very people-oriented company. And with the Guptas, very scientific minded. As you know, Deshbandhu Gupta was a chemistry professor himself,
Yes.
and recently the book came out, Made in India, so capturing his story. But that was a very, very satisfying experience, because we could work on several things.
So you've worked on so many fields, interdisciplinary fields. When you look back at your career, and you're still working, but when you look back at your career, do you feel that you missed out on certain things, or you felt that you could have done?
Yeah, I feel that I was never thinking to be an entrepreneur, because then I would have looked at so many of the allied disciplines, like finance, for example. I mean, business finance was something that I could have done much better job getting involved into, because I ran several units which had huge budgets, but some finance guy was managing that right from my Aventis days. But I think that is one area that I feel that I should have concentrated more and understood P&Ls and balance sheets much better than that. But now I think I'm doing that now, trying to understand it better. The R&D, many times in within pharma or more in academics, is more centered on research for the research sake. And as a result, many times it is not business driven. Particularly applied research areas like pharma research has to be business driven. So understanding the markets, understanding the market needs, because medical needs we can always understand, that is our domain strength. But understanding the market needs, understanding what goes into a doctor prescribing that product, I would have taken much more efforts to understand that better. So I think that is one thing I feel, I could have definitely done that if you knew the future.
Sir, what would you suggest or give advice to the current and the next generation who are probably having very similar footsteps like yours?
Yeah. So I think the first and the most important, I used to run a very interesting program in Reliance. I called it visiting associates, because the technical branches are so compartmentalized that a clinical research guy does not understand pharmacovigilance, a pharmacovigilance guy doesn't understand quality that is involved, and other branches. So therefore, in Reliance, I created a program called Clinical Visiting Associate. So a guy or gal from clinical research will attend, once in a month for few days, another functional discipline not connected to his, and just observe. So that made, and it was a great hit with the people, because we had about almost 200 people at that time. Because people otherwise, anything that is curricular is not so interesting. Extracurricular thing people take interest. So
Absolutely.
taking advantage of that fact, if you just look around what the guy next to you is doing and understanding what is that domain, trying to learn from him, is always possible for young associates. But we many times remain tunnel vision, and we say that is not my job. So whenever I did role changes, I found tremendous amount of resistance for a person from changing from one field to another. Classically, at that time, medical affairs to clinical research. But when I looked at the personality and convinced the person that you're better suitable for clinical research because you're very discipline oriented, an extrovert who really was very good for medical affairs was, suffering in a clinical research group where everything was mandated and he had to follow the SOPs. So moving him and freeing, his creativity in medical affairs really worked wonders. So therefore, if young associates look at all disciplines, keep a lot of interest in what is going on around the world, and not remain tunnel vision, is very, very important, because you don't know where your career will take you. And as you grow higher up, you have to learn management principles. You have to do a lot of soft skills development. And I consistently, in all my organizations, I ensured that we always had these kind of training programs for my associates. And finally, in Lupin, I created my own brand of these trainings called Augmenter, and where we did almost once in a month a full day workshop for actual learning on the job kind of case studies, where everybody went through different types of soft skill learning. And we took very different type of subjects, like say for example Murphy's Law. So we had a full day workshop on Murphy's Law to train people that when things go wrong,
That's
how should you do?
interesting.
So, it's a training of the brain, that you put
Absolutely.
them in a spot and say that this is what has, and a real life case study to them from their own discipline, saying that if this thing didn't work out well, what will you do? We present a role play for them. So I think those programs were very, very interesting, and the kind of response that I got, from the associates was overwhelming.
At this stage of your life, now that you were talking about trainings, would you like to teach certain aspects of clinical pharmacology or even any basic concepts to impart knowledge that you've gained so much?
It was very tempting, and before I retired, I thought that I will take the augmenter type of a program to a new level. But the best way of teaching is by setting examples. So therefore, what I realize is that training of associates, I think a lot of people can do, but the entire pharma industry today is struggling for its identity. And I'm just coming out of the session where one of the topics was, we have made India's mark on the world stage as a pharmacy. How can we move to innovation? Now, I've heard the same talk for last 20 years, and it has not yet happened. So therefore, in order to create innovation, we had several discussions today, and I was on the panel discussing that. But the point is that to create a model which is sustainable, which is really not cost intensive, which is not capital intensive, I thought repurposing of drugs is one of the best to establish that. So through the startup that I created and which is getting a good support from different stakeholders, at least in the next 5 years, I would like to set up examples of drugs that can be created through patents and with minimum infrastructure, with minimum capital, and then take these products abroad in terms of licensing route. So if I'm able to do that, then I think I can leave a legacy behind.
So, do you think the lack of innovation is also because of comfort that people have, which they already know about, whether it is manufacturing or uh, producing extra drugs which are already there in market, because you have a comfort in that and you know that market is going on well. So, there is, though there is a need for innovation, you know that there is survival happening. So, is there that um, less quest for innovation in people?
The mindset is an issue. Mindset is a big issue. The culture of innovation has not been created. What happened was when Indian pharma became big, that was because of the generic exports to the developed markets. So a lot of money came in. And then they thought that we can replicate the same into new drug research. So big discovery centers came up. And really, we did not make an impact. And several drug discovery research units have been closed down now. So therefore, we did not really capitalize on the strengths that exist today by looking at these kind of models, which are not glamorous enough. So the repurposed drug, for example, or modification of routes and all, which was considered very incremental by Indian pharma. So I always sense that while working in these big pharmas, that they were looked down upon. But at the same time, in some of the companies that I worked for, I remember having created a product which is now today called MRL M, and I was heading the business development of Aventis along with the medical function. And we developed, it took us 3 years to develop a combination of glimepiride with metformin in a sustained release form. And by that time, 40 other products came in the market. But the moment we introduced that, because it is a perfectly developed product, we literally wiped out the competition and it became a most established product today. That is because of the quality and the innovation that was behind it. So I feel the sense of innovation through patenting and then getting exclusivity and entrenching through a brand building, there are very few examples. So I think these are the ones that we have to stress and create more such examples.
Sir, on this note, how does events like Analytical Lab India help in this aspect?
They help in bringing people together. Uh, so, but there is no sustained movement behind that. So we have to have some more formal structures between the different stakeholders to be brought together, who meet on a periodic
Regular
basis
basis.
to take stock of the situation. Because I've been watching that the same topics are being discussed for last 20-25 years, year after year. So we have to really make changes, and if that those changes have to occur, we require a few bunch of committed people,
Absolutely.
bring all stakeholders together, sustain with that body, and then pursue it through the end. It's possible because now the new government's is well established now, and Prime Minister Modi really is giving a lot of thrust to R&D. Except that the industry has to respond now. He's creating a lot of funds for them. A lot of companies are getting money from the government, which is something we never imagined before.
True.
So therefore, the environment is ripe. Like-minded people with a lot of innovation culture have to come together.
So, what are the three changes that you would like to see in the next 5 to 10 years in this landscape?
I think the first and foremost is that the level playing field has to be provided to all the companies, which is for R&D particularly, because current policies are such that it is not happening for various reasons. I won't go into the details of that. I already identified some of those in the panel today, which was attended also by the CDSCO, Deputy Drug Controller, and other stakeholders. But if we provide a level playing field and ensure that the innovation is rewarded in terms of some kind of an exclusivity to the company which brings it to the market, I think half the this thing is won. And then we have to create a meritorious culture. the overall way the pharma products are promoted to the doctor and the kind of money that flows in from pharma in general on promotion versus R&D, that needs to be weighed, and we need to balance that out to ensure that a lot of money goes to innovation as well. And if there is some kind of an exclusivity to the innovator, I feel that this entire scenario can change. So these are the two things. And third thing is about the talents. We have to identify, the disciplines that require a lot of training. For example, the AIML in pharma is going to revolutionize the way we function and the way we operate. However, we don't see those many people within pharma who are well aware, except doing some kind of a co-pilot usage. But I think we really need to step up on that front because China is gone far ahead. See, we saw that so many, 40 GLP brands are coming to the 40 companies are bringing it to market, but we really don't understand how to differentiate our GLP-1 from others. And you look at the molecules from China, and some of these companies have used AIML techniques to differentiate, identify what would reduce the side effects that are seen with current GLP-1, and such products are in phase 3, and it is not on anybody's radar here. So therefore, I think it's very, very important that we keep track of innovative developments, products that differentiate, that are scientifically superior, bring them to India, develop them here, and then start developing our own. I think that is the key to go. In which case, the environment is right, the time is also come now, except that we have to step up to take up these opportunities.
I completely agree. I think there is still a very long way to go, but I guess we are still in a better position today with a lot of changes and digitalization and accepting the introduction of AI in our lives. Hope to see a better future and having such inspiring people. I guess I don't think so. There will be a thought when people watch such shows where the thought of being lazy and not wanting to do anything, people like you will definitely motivate and inspire us to work more and be a better version of ourselves, I would say. Thank you so much for being on the show, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.